Anybody can act, some can direct, nobody can write. So be the writer. There's 30 million YouTube channels. Leverage the writing.
Writing has become somewhat of a lost art, but it's something that I've been doing for the vast majority of my film career. So I'm going to share with you how I write. Welcome to How to Write with Brando. Now, writing is different for everyone, but here are some key things that I think are most important in the process of developing a good story and good characters. Now, one of the biggest problems is too many people are not writing what they know. There should be a childlike wonder to what you're doing with your writing. It should be as if you and your imagination is allowing you to act as someone else, just like you probably did as a little kid. It's that childlike wonder of becoming what you are imagining. But we do grow out of it, just like I'm probably growing out of this swing set right here. But to that point, I do believe that imagination is the first step in developing the best stories possible. The first major step in developing the story is understanding who your character is. Without knowing who your character is, there's no direction for the story to take. And the first question to ask yourself is who they are now and who will they become. Now, sometimes that's not as easy as you think, but how I see it, think of it like a fireside chat with your friends. Just hanging around the fire, just casual conversation. That's how you get to know who people are. I first see how I would see the character as if I was sitting right next to them. Now, second is painting a picture. It's allowing the audience to view the story from an external perspective. Allow them to bring their experiences to relate to the character and relate to the story. Think of it like a camera on a tripod. There's many spots that I can be in this frame, and it's up to you to decide where to focus your eyes on. You should also throw your audience right into the scene. Bring them into the chaos immediately because it shows your character's truest colors. It's a fun way that I like to start my scripts because it really embodies who the character is and what they're doing. You may have to, quite literally, save the cat. Now, what saving the cat is you need to build in the beginning of your story some kind of way where the protagonist becomes somewhat likable or at least understandable of why they're doing the actions that they are doing. The quote does come from the literal sense of having your character save a cat. But with that being said, saving the cat can be anything from just allowing the audience to understand why the protagonist is doing what they're doing. Just like in Breaking Bad, you may not agree with what Walter White is doing, but you understand why he does it. You could almost say that that's a black cat version of Save the Cat. This is what irks me most about scripts these days, is writing characters that no one cares about and no one has a reason to care about. It's unfortunate because there's some really great stories out there, and all they need is just for that character to be just a little bit understandable, a little bit likable. It is the biggest and most urgent thing I think is missing in most scripts today. In the first few pages of my scripts, I like to take control of the camera. Take it off of the tripod per se. Because I like to be in control of how the audience is seeing the story and seeing the narrative. Some people prefer it otherwise, but this is just a big personal preference for me. By taking the wheel of the story, by taking it into your own hands, you are able to create such a better and more controlled story where you're allowed to basically be the eyes of the story, of the character, of that person that's watching from afar. And you miss that when you're on sticks because then it's more up to the audience's interpretation. As I move farther into a script, I like to throw the camera more on sticks. But for the very intro, I think, at least for my style of writing, it's crucial to take the steering wheel and bring your audience inside of the story. I'm not one to go to the computer immediately. I like to see out my thoughts and really know who the character is and what the story is before I begin to sit down and type. There's something about the way that I can sit in my head with it, and it really allows the story to culminate and brew into something more relatable, to be quite honest, because I'm not separating myself by a screen or by a notebook at first. I'm really trying to understand the story in my own head, so I know it so well that I can describe it to someone without any written notes, without anything to look upon. I think of it like a journal. Think of it as if you're writing the story to your own character. Think of it almost as method acting, but instead of method acting, it's method writing. It's understanding your character inside and out, so you know how they sound, you know how they speak, you know how they interact, and you know the choices that they would always make. And if you can figure out those things before you sit down and write, the answer is in front of you every single time. And for me, that makes the most effective writing. Because when I sit down, I want concise thoughts. So in the future, I can elaborate. I've read many scripts, and a lot of them are the same. They lack layers. They lack conceptualization. They focus too much on other characters that are not the main protagonist. The story drifts from the general idea of where they were going. And it all happens, generally speaking, because people write too much towards the story and not enough towards the characters. So of course it took me until now to realize that the mic had been off for the last two clips. So I'm just gonna sum up my thoughts here real quick with how to write and why I write the way I write. It's so important to write like you're creating a piece of music. And here's the biggest thing, writing and art in general is subjective. That's the beauty of art, is that it's subjective. And it gives you the free will to do whatever you want. But it is important, I do believe, to understand the fundamentals, especially from a screenwriting perspective. If you can understand the fundamentals of how a screenplay should be written, it helps you build off of those and helps you use the things that are going to develop what you're going to eventually consider your style. This is how I write, and most importantly, enjoy the process, set up all these lights just to make it fun. Till tomorrow. Sincerely, Brando. Busy morning on the farm, but now we're gonna go separate the calves. So let's get to it. So the whole key with this is once you get one to go into the pen, the rest you usually follow. So, all right, let's see what we can do today. Now for number 2. Into the pen. Let's go. Let's go. That's 2. Come on. All right, and that's 3. We got them all.